So the two sets of terms, let's go through them. We have the first set of terms is in the notes, and it's the 8 parts of speech. Let's just give some context here. Why I'm telling you, right, in very simple terms, really good idea if you want to be able to write good PQE paragraphs, and especially to be able to explain yourself and analyse text. That's what examiners are going to want you to do, to look at somebody else's writing and analyse it, right? 2 sets of terms that will just give you a little bit of an edge on the average student, right? Again, you're giving up your time watching me today, this back to school course, and you'll be giving up your time maybe going to grinds during the year to try and get the edge on somebody else so that you can get, one of the top grades. Well, one way of doing this in English is to know these 2 sets of terms and then to use them as ways of analysing text. Right? Now, the first set of terms are parts of speech. There are 8 parts of speech. In the notes there on page 11, right? The 8 parts of speech. And this is something I do with all my classes, right? First up to 6th year. Because if you can analyse English using the parts of speech, what makes up a sentence, right? Then, it shows kind of a sophisticated sort of analysis, and it also shows an understanding of the language that is English, right? So this is something we learn in primary school, right? What are the 8 parts of speech? Do you see the little poem on page 11? It's kind of a childish sort of primary school poem. And the 8 parts are nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, conjunctions, prepositions, interjections, right? I'd say 3 or 4 of those you're thinking, well, I know those, and maybe there's 3 or 4 that you're thinking, oh no, I can't really remember what that one is. So look, these are really good words, the 8 parts of speech. I'm just going to put the figure 8 up there. The 8 parts of speech are really good words to have for when you go to analyse maybe quotations in something. So I like the use of Shakespeare's adjectives to describe whatever it is. Or the poet uses clever verbs to explain this. Or the writer in this speech uses some persuasive pronouns to help us think like this. And if you can analyse text like that, especially in poetry and in Shakespeare and sometimes in comprehensions, you're going to be bringing a level of analysis that other students won't do. And I think they're an easy set of terms. Let's just write them in, because for today's class, I could spend 40 minutes on this poem in a class and we go through it in more detail, but this is just a back to school course. We're going to go through it quickly, and hopefully then you can start to use these in your own writing. If we look at page 11, all the answers are in, there's 16 words filled out in that grid there, so we're going to put them into the poem here. Let's just pen in hand, okay? Again, if I'm going too fast here, you can just pause me and fill in words. If I've left you behind, just press pause or rewind, whatever you want. Number 1, a noun. The first blank is a noun, is a person, place or thing. I hope there's some people hitting themselves in the head there going, what the hell is he telling us a noun? I know what a bleeding noun is, right? But just work with me here. So let's write number 1 beside that. Beside the first blank. A noun is a person, place or thing, like ball or hurdy, slide or swing. To replace a noun, you may prefer the second blank here, right, is pronoun. So let's write the word pronoun in there. Spelling's in the box if you need it. Pronoun, you or him or her. Her is the third blank. But let's just write, we want the 8 parts of speech, okay? So number 1 is noun and number 2 is pronoun, okay? And the definitions are there. Let's move on to the third verse. So this blank here is number 3. Let's write number 3 beside this. Blank describe the type of noun. I'm hoping most people know this. What describes nouns? Adjectives, right? So let's write that in. Adjectives describe the type of noun. And that's number 3. That's our third part of speech. Adjectives. Skinny, fat, black or brown. So you can write brown in for the space there. Number 4. Let's write number 4 now. For blank or action, something to be done. A doing word. What's that one? A verb. Let's write number 4 and verb in. Verbs are actions, something to be done. Read or write, laugh or run. So run is the next blank there. Okay, so we've 4 so far. Number 1 is noun. Number 2 is adjective. Number 3 is I'll go again. Number 1 is noun, number 2 is pronoun, number 3 is adjective, and number 4 is verb, okay? And now we're into the third verse. Describing a verb, the blank do well. So what describes a verb? Adverb, okay? So number 5 is adverb. Let's write it down. As confidently, speedily, ill, or well is the next blank. Well, okay? Number 6, remember there's 8 parts of speech. Number 6, blank bring words and phrases together. What joins things? Conjunction, right? Think of the word junction. So conjunction bring words and phrases together as men and women, flowers and heather. So women is the next blank there. And that's number 6. Write number 6 beside conjunction. So write number 5 beside adverb, number 6 beside conjunction. Now we've just 2 left. We're into the last verse. Blank show position. Preposition, right? Let's write that in. Preposition. 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 And that's number 7. Let's write number 7 beside that. They go before a noun as on or over or under or around. So the last one then, number 8, 8 parts of speech. Interjections show surprise as oh how lovely or ah how wise. Interjection. It's one word, right? Interjection. That's number 8. Okay, so there are our 8 parts of speech. Now, why in the name of God am I doing that today and taking 10 minutes out of this class? Because if we can use those 8 parts of speech and analyse with them in anything we do in English, you know, in anything where we're analysing text, most of this exam, I would say 90% of this exam, you're going to be analysing somebody else's writing. Whether it's a poem or a Shakespearean drama or a comprehension that you've never seen before or a speech by Barack Obama or something like this, you're going to be analysing the language. And if you can analyse using the parts of speech, I like the use of these descriptive adjectives to show this. I like the use of these clever verbs to do this. The pronouns are used well here to suggest this. Shakespeare uses nice adverbs to describe this. If you can analyse text like that, bingo, right? That's when the grade starts to go north of the merit, right? And into the higher merit and distinction. So that's one set of terms. My second set of terms, and again, I'm hoping this is something you've been starting to do since first year. So you might know a good few of these. Maybe you went over a few more last year. Maybe there are students sitting there going, I've never done these. What is he talking about? On pages 12 and 13, I have the poetic techniques or language techniques, right? This is important. I've seen twice out of 3 years, I've seen a question just on language techniques, asking you to pick out poetic techniques from this poem or something along those lines. It might give you 5 language techniques. One year it gave you 5, like metaphor, personification, simile, enjambment and repetition, and you had to go and find 5 examples in the poem, one for each of those. So this is a question you need, and even when you're not asked about it, even if it's not a direct question that's asking you about language techniques, you want to use them in your analysis of your quotations. I like the use of Shakespeare's metaphor in this line to suggest this. I like the use of W.B. Yeats's simile to compare these things, you know, and you can be using it even in a comprehension. The author uses nice personification to show us this. If you can use these language techniques, well then, you know, these are the terms that will bring the grade, start bringing the grade up. All right. So with that in mind, then on pages 12 and 13, okay, let's go through the language techniques. I probably have, I'm probably going to, I'll go through them all, right? But I'll tell you the ones as we go along. I'll ask you to put a star beside the ones I feel are really, you have to know. Some of the other ones, you know, are fine. They're just in there in the notes. But others are more important. Okay, first one is repetition. Okay, so you see, I'm getting you to write them in today because I just really want you to, you know, memorize these. So let's write it in there. Repetition. We're on top of page 12. It says language techniques and literary terms. Bullet point number 1. There's a big blank. Let's write the word repetition. R-E-P-E-T-I-T-I-O-N. Repetition. Now, at any stage, you can press pause if you need to go back over something. Just remember that. When words or phrases are repeated to place emphasis on something, right? So an author repeats. It's simple. Repetition to repeat. So they say something a few times to really hammer something home. You see it in all types of English, right? Writing, that is. Okay, number 2, we're into our comparisons. And the first one there is a comparison. Comparing one thing with another using the words like or as. Hopefully we know this one. You know when you compare, let's say my auntie smokes a lot of cigarettes, and I'd say something like, my auntie smokes like a chimney, right? That's called simile, isn't it? When we use the words like or as to compare for exaggeration, right? So let's write it in there. Simile, S-I-M-I-L-E. What's the second comparison one where it's a bit stronger than a simile? We get rid of the words like or as, and we just say, my auntie is a chimney. Look at her. She's on her 40th cigarette there today. She is a chimney. That's called metaphor, isn't it? When we say something is something it isn't. So let's write that in there. M-E-T-A-P-H-O-R is metaphor. The fourth one is when you bring something to life. The definition says giving a lifeless object or animal human characteristics. And that's called personification, right? Personification. So P-E-R-S-O-N-I-F-I-C-A-T-I-O-N. Yes, very long word. P-E-R-S-O-N, person, I-F-I-C-A-T-I-O-N. Right, next one. The next few, the first five there, put stars beside all five of those. They're very important. Repetition, first four should I say, repetition, simile, metaphor, personification. You've got to know them, right, for junior cycle. You've got to be able to spot that in someone else's work and hopefully use them in your own work as well. Okay, and we use them every day when we talk, when we speak, we use metaphors. Look at the state of your one, she's a pig, right? I hope no one ever says that about anyone, but that's what we do. We use these when we speak every day, right? So hopefully you can identify them there now. The next few here, right, are all to do with sound, what we can hear, sound effects, right? First one then, the beginning of words next to or near each other in a sentence share similar consonants. So could we just underline the word consonant? And what's that when we have repetitive consonant sounds, right? Big blue boat, B, B, B. Or the example there is lake, water, lapping, with, low, sounds by the shore, L, 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 S, S. That's called alliteration. A-L-L-I-T-E-R-A-T-I-O-N. A-L-L-I-T-E-R-A-T-I-O-N. Has to be in words close to each other in a sentence. Okay? Has to be in words close to each other in a sentence. The next one then, what we underline consonants for alliteration. The next one is about vowels. And when we've got vowel sounds in words close to each other, we have assonance, right? A-S-S-O-N-A-N-C-E, assonance. A-S-S-O-N-A-N-C-E. So alliteration is for consonants. We've got 26 letters in the English alphabet, right? 5 of those are vowels. So 26 minus 5 is 21. They're all called the consonants, right? And then we have the other 5 letters are the vowels. So when we have consonants, we get alliteration. And when we have vowels, we get assonance, okay? And this is the noise. So where's the definition there? When words close to each other, again, the words have to be close to each other in the sentence, so you get the repetitive sound. And when words close to each other in a sentence produce a repetitive vowel, example, with tiny white sea lice, tie, y, lie, I. So whenever you get I, oo, e, a, o. Whenever you get any of those repetitive sounds in words close to each other in a sentence, you get assonance, right? And assonance is only vowels. Next one is sibilance. Let's write it in, the next blank. Repetitive S sounds in groups of words is called sibilance. So she sells seashells by the seashore. You've got the all the way through that old nursery rhyme or a riddle or whatever you want to call it. Tongue twister. So sibilance, S-I-B-I-L-A-N-C-E, right? And those 3 there, alliteration, assonance, sibilance, it's all to do with repetitive sounds in words, right? Consonants, vowels, and then just S noises, right? So there's sound effects. One more there, we have onomatopoeia, right? Onomatopoeia. Well, we'll start with the definition, will we? When the word used sounds like the action it's trying to explain. So onomatopoeia is one I'm hoping we know. Okay, so you got, the word imitates the action. So slap, or flip flop, or drip drop, or those types of things. Snap, crackle, and pop. those types of words that actually describe the sound, called onomatopoeia. Now, the hardest thing about onomatopoeia is the spelling, isn't it? O-N-O-M-A-T-O-P-O-E-I-A. Have to think about that one. You'll never get that spelling wrong, right? If you put it to the song of Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Okay, so I'm going to do that for you now. Do you know the nursery rhyme, Old MacDonald Had a Farm? Old MacDonald, yeah. Well, you put the word into that nursery rhyme. O-N-O-M-A-T-O-P-O-E-I-A. Right, you'll never forget it again. Sorry about that cringe moment. I should have warned you. Now, so look, everything up to now, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 language techniques that we have to know for junior cycle English, right? They could come up in a question on their own, or else you just have to be able to analyse them when you're doing your own PQE. Other ones here aren't as important, right? So the first 8 there, gotta know. These are just other ones for your dictionary, right, or for your mind's thesaurus. Words that are pleasing to the ear is euphony, E-U-P-H-O-N-Y. Next one, harsh sounding words, that's cacophony, C-A-C-O-P-H-A-N-Y. Okay. If we flick over the page, we've got rhythm. Okay, rhythm is the beat in a poem, right? We need to know rhythm, the beat in a poem. It's to do with, let's underline one word there, syllables. Do you see it? Syllables. So we're at the top of page 13 now. The blank is rhythm, and we're underlining the word syllables. This is the beat, the pattern. So in lots of, say, Shakespeare's work, he has 10 syllables in every line. If you read any of the great Shakespearean plays, 95% of the lines in the play are written in 10 syllable lines. So if you read the play, I don't know what you might be doing, Romeo and Juliet or Merchant of Venice, most of the lines in that play are written with 10 syllables in every line. And if you think then there's thousands of lines in that play, that's quite a feat, isn't it? That's quite a feat of word choice, if you like. Okay, the next one is rhyme. Second blank is rhyme, R-H-Y-M-E, when words and poems sound similar. We know that one. The next one is theme, T-H-E-M-E. That's when we get a strong issue or sort of idea coming through the text. The next one, blank, this is the fourth blank, a theme that's developed, that's called a motif, M-O-T-I-F. Again, I'm not going to get you to star any of these, let's just write them in. The next blank, the attitude, opinion of a speaker, is the tone. So blank number 5 on page 13 is tone, right? The next one, again, I know I'm going through quite quickly here, so feel free at any stage just to press pause while you write down the answer or go back and get it. Descriptive writing and language that appeals to our senses is called imagery. That's definitely one we need to put a star beside, imagery, right? And let's just put a star beside theme as well. So imagery and theme, they're definitely 2 terms we need to know, right? So imagery is the next one, I-M-A-G-E-R-Y. The next one, blank, it says run on lines, especially popular in poetry. That came up a few years ago in junior cycle, and that is called enjambment, right? Enjambment. E-N-J-A-M-B-M-E-N-T. Enjambment. E-N-J-A-M-B-M-E-N-T. That, put a star beside that one. So far on this page, on page 13, we've just had 3 stars. Theme, imagery, and enjambment. They're ones we have to know. And sorry, I'm going to add 2 to that. Rhythm and rhyme, obviously. But they're, I'm hoping they're ones you know already. Just to finish off there, the last few are more, I'm kind of pushing into the realms of leaving cert, right? But I'm going to put them in anyway. The first one, comparing different things to show difference to create awareness or emphasis. That's called contrast. And sorry, that did come up on the exam a few years ago, to contrast things to show that they're different. Like a simple example is black and white, would be a contrast because they're colour-wise, you're looking at differences. So in literature then, when we write, you can put in things that are totally different to show, to highlight their difference. That's called contrast. C-O-N-T-R-A-S-T. Other ones there, the next one, we're on the 4th last one now. It is oxymoron, O-X-Y-M-O-R-O-N, when you put 2 words side by side to show that they're different. And the next one is juxtaposition. I'm getting a bit technical now. This is the 3rd last one, J-U-X-T-A-P-O-S-I-T-I-O-N, right? 2nd last one, again, feel free to pause me. Symbolism, S-Y-M-B-O-L-I-S-M. And the last one is allegory, 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 and that means hidden meanings, right? Hidden meanings in poetry. So we starred now the ones that we need, right? We need the first, all the way down as far as onomatopoeia, the first 8 on page 12, okay? And then we need on page 13, rhythm, rhyme, enjambment, theme, imagery, and contrast. Okay, so there's 6 on page 13. I've added a few in there just, why not have a few extra ones, okay? So look, that's our second set of terms then. We have to know them. They might even come up in a question on their own, a short question on their own, but we need to, more importantly, we need to be able to, if we give a quote and there's a simile in it, the average student will not identify that simile. They'll just start talking about what's going on in the word, but they won't be able to go, I like the use of this clever simile because it compares the person's auntie to a chimney, and that's clever because it creates imagery and blah blah blah. So if you can use these language techniques, poetic techniques, to help explain, analyze and so on, you'll be doing really well, and most students won't do that, and that's another way to push you up into the higher grades. Okay, let's get on to the main topic now, which is poetry. All right, poetry is, I said I'd have a quick look at one of the topics on the junior cycle, and that's poetry. So if you go to page, 15, you'll see junior cycle poetry. And on page 14 is junior cycle poetry, and on page 15 is the coursework for poetry. I'm about to hit you with a great revelation here, right? Okay, so listen up, tune in, especially for those of you who want to cut your workload a little bit, which I'm sure most of you do. The coursework, as it says on the top of page 15 of the notes, is 16 poems, right? Is the coursework for junior cycle English. I would be happy enough if you studied 3 or 4 poems in detail. So hopefully over the course of the years that you've been doing junior cycle English, first, second, third year, you will cover 16 poems. That's fine. That's great if you did, okay? But when we're getting down to just purely think about exams, I would be happy with 3 is fine. 3, maybe a 4th, just in case, but I think 3 is absolutely fine. You just got to be careful that you don't do 4 poems about the same idea. So spread them out over different themes. So you might do a poem about love and relationships. You might have a poem about war and violence. You might have a poem about death, okay? And then you might have a 4th poem about, take your pick, anything, nature or something like that. Okay, so spread them out thematically. But if you come to the, at some stage in 3rd year when your teacher says, right, we're finished our poetry now, and you've got like 12 or 16 or 20 poems, you're like, geez, that's so much work to cover. Well, just focus in on 3, at the most 4, okay? But I think 3 is the magic number, as the song says, okay? So let's go with 3. So hopefully that's kind of, it doesn't matter. They won't pick a specific poem in junior cycle if poetry comes up. They will say the following: from a poem you have studied for junior cycle, discuss an interesting setting, or discuss an interesting theme, or analyse the imagery in that poem, or pick out some strong language techniques in that poem. So therefore it'll be up to you. So if you've got 3 poems about 3 totally different things, and there's lots of imagery and language technique and strong sort of settings and things like that in them, it doesn't matter then. You don't need 8 or 16 as the course says 16. So hopefully I've helped you out there. 3 poems, know them in depth, back to front, upside down, be able to quote from them, know the strong images, the themes, and so on, and then you're away, okay? If we look on page 15, it says poetry exam topics. So once you've decided on your 3 poems, right, what do you need to study in them? Well, there's a list from 1 to 6. The poetic techniques, number 1. So we're still on page 15 here. Poetic techniques, number 1. Theme, number 2. Setting, number 3. Tone, number 4. Meaning, number 5. And imagery, number 6. So I would decide then, I would be making a little bank of notes about each of those headings for the 3 poems that I'm studying for junior cycle. Okay, again, what I said, 16 is the official number. We're going to reduce it to 3 for the exam, just for the exam. It's great if you studied 16, that's lovely, but let's hone in on the exam now. And we picked 3 themes from 3 different areas, and we will, focus on those under those headings, okay? Under those headings. And, in the course later in the year, I'll go through poetry and I'll hone in on maybe, I'll put together a booklet of about 8 poems, and, you can pick your 3 poems from that booklet. Okay, and it will have all notes on each of those 6 headings, all right? The other thing on page 15 there is the checklist, 10 tips for answering poetry questions. Okay, so, it's just things like use the key words of the question in your answer, make sure and do PQE, make sure that you time the sentence, make sure that you have a topic sentence and that you explain and develop yourself, make sure that if there's any language techniques that you mention those or you analyse using parts of speech. So I'll let you read those, there's 10 tips there, I'll let you read through those yourself, all right? Okay. Just before, I'm going to have a look at a poem now in about 2 minutes, right? But just before I do that, on page 16 there in the notes, on page 16, there is a list, probably a good list that I would cut out of the notes and stick into an English copy somewhere, okay? And it's a list of like sentence starters. So these are, sometimes students find it hard to get the paragraph going or to get the sentence started. Or to get the essay started or the answer started. So these will help you. You just have to sort of fill in some of the blanks that are there, but these will help you, good little sheet to have in the back of an English copy somewhere, and you can check it every now and then, and you can use one of these sentence starters. I've made it out for poetry, but really we can use it when we analyse anything in English, Shakespeare, or any text that we're analysing. We can use these types of sentence starters. So that's on page 16, and cut it out, stick it into the back of the copy, okay? Okay, and that brings us on then to the poem that we're going to focus on for today, right? I said I'd do one poem, go through it with you, what are the sorts of things I'd be picking out, and things I'd be making notes on, and what sort of questions you might be asked. So I'm going to do that then. It starts on page 17.